When we think of Germany's armored might in World War II, names like Tiger and Panther often dominate the conversation. Massive tanks built for head-on duels against enemy armor. But one of the most effective German vehicles of the war wasn't a tank at all. It was the Sturmgeschütz, or assault gun. The Sturmgeschütz, often nicknamed the StuG, began life as a simple infantry support machine, a low-slung, turretless vehicle meant to blast bunkers, strongpoints, and enemy infantry positions. Hardly the sort of machine you'd expect to become one of the most feared tank killers of the Eastern Front. Yet, through a mix of necessity, battlefield improvisation, and sheer effectiveness, the StuG transformed from a humble support vehicle into Germany's most successful tank destroyer. By the end of the war, StuGs had racked up more armored kills than Tigers and Panthers combined. This is the story of how a simple design, meant to support foot soldiers, became the unexpected backbone of Germany's armored defense. The idea behind the Sturmgeschütz, or assault gun, emerged in the interwar years, as Germany sought to rebuild and modernize its military under the constraints of the Treaty of Versailles. The First World War had shattered not only empires, but also old ways of fighting. Among the many lessons learned was the dangerous gap between infantry and artillery. Advancing soldiers needed firepower to smash bunkers and machine gun nests, yet towed artillery was too slow to keep up. By the 1930s, German planners were rethinking the problem. In 1935, General Erich von Manstein proposed a new solution: a mobile, armored gun that could accompany infantry into battle, shielded by armor and capable of knocking out strongpoints and, if necessary, enemy tanks. His idea wasn't for massed formations like tanks, but small platoons of assault guns working directly with infantry. There was no clear agreement on how to proceed with the concept. Critics, including Heinz Guderian, argued that ordinary tanks could already provide adequate infantry support. The Panzer IV, for instance, carried a gun specifically designed for that role, and unlike a self-propelled gun, it had a turret that allowed it to engage targets in any direction. After weighing the arguments for and against, the German High Command ultimately approved the development of a dedicated armored vehicle for infantry support. Developed during a period of rapid military expansion, the StuG was designed to take advantage of existing Panzer components, especially the Panzer III chassis. This simplified production ensured the vehicle could enter service without delay. Daimler-Benz was tasked with designing the chassis, while Krupp was assigned responsibility for producing the 75mm gun. In July 1937, 5 prototype vehicles rolled out of the factories. Built on a modified Panzer III chassis, each mounted a 75mm gun in a fixed, low-profile casemate. This first version carried no machine guns, but its compact silhouette and respectable armor gave it certain advantages. Its engine, however, was underpowered, limiting the vehicle to just 25 kilometers per hour, still considered sufficient for its intended role at the time. These initial machines were never intended for frontline combat. Their hulls were constructed from mild steel. Following trials at the Kummersdorf testing grounds, the vehicles were reassigned to an artillery training school, where they remained in instructional use. By 1940, after a series of refinements, Daimler-Benz delivered the first production run of the redesigned vehicles. These machines featured a more powerful engine, 50mm of frontal armor, and an improved suspension system. Officially designated the 7.5cm Sturmgeschütz III Model A, they represented a significant step forward. Within just over a month of rollout, the new assault guns were committed to action in France, where their battlefield performance earned high praise from both commanders and crews. Impressed by the results, the Wehrmacht quickly moved to expand production. With Daimler-Benz factories already burdened, responsibility for manufacturing was transferred to Alkit, where output was scaled up to 30 vehicles per month. That same year, 184 StuGs were produced, followed by an impressive 584 in 1941, cementing the vehicle's growing importance in the German arsenal. The StuG 3 would go on to become the most widely produced assault gun of the Second World War, with some 10,500 vehicles built. Its success was not only due to its battlefield effectiveness but also to its cost efficiency. While a Panzer III came with a price tag of around 105,000 Reichsmarks, and a Panzer IV even higher, the StuG 3 could be produced for just 82,500 Reichsmarks, making it a far more economical option for Germany's strained war industry. Faster and cheaper to build than turreted vehicles, the StuG quickly became one of Germany's most valuable and adaptable armored assets. The Sturmgeschütz played an important role in the early successes of Operation Barbarossa, providing vital support during the rapid German advance into Soviet territory. Yet, by the end of 1941, the limitations of Germany's armored forces were becoming painfully clear. Despite their initial triumphs, the Wehrmacht's tanks and assault guns were increasingly outclassed by the appearance of the Soviet KV-1 and T-34, whose superior firepower, armor, and mobility threatened to overwhelm German formations on the Eastern Front. The most powerful gun the Germans had mounted was the 50mm gun on the Panzer III. The original short-barreled 75mm gun of the Sturmgeschütz had been intended primarily for firing low-velocity, high-explosive shells in direct support of infantry assaults. Mounted on the relatively compact Panzer III chassis, it fulfilled this role effectively. The introduction of the 75mm Pak 40 anti-tank gun in 1942 marked a significant improvement in German anti-tank capabilities. With its superior performance compared to the Russian 76mm gun, the Pak 40 provided the German forces with a much-needed advantage on the battlefield. The Germans quickly adapted by mounting the Pak 40 gun on every vehicle capable of carrying it. The StuG's fixed turretless design carried an unexpected advantage. It allowed the vehicle to be rearmed with the new long-barreled 75mm anti-tank gun, an upgrade that the Panzer III itself could not accommodate. This transformation gave the Sturmgeschütz a new and deadly potential beyond its initial role. With this new armament, the StuG suddenly became a true match for the T-34. No longer confined to infantry support, it gained the ability to destroy enemy armor at range. Its low silhouette made it harder to target than the taller Soviet tank, and its sloped armor increased its chances of survival. By 1942, during the titanic battles on the Eastern Front, this transformation gave Germany a desperately needed boost. This vital upgrade first appeared on the Sturmgeschütz Model F in 1942. Armed with the long-barreled 75mm L-43 gun, the StuG could now fire armor-piercing shells at much higher muzzle velocity, giving it a tank-killing capability far superior to the 50mm gun of the Panzer III. From that point forward, it would serve primarily as the German Army's main anti-tank weapon, while its original infantry support role was largely taken over by the Stu-42, a variant built on the same chassis but armed with a more powerful howitzer. By this stage, it was clear that the Panzer III had reached the limits of its development and was gradually withdrawn from frontline production. From 1943 onward, its chassis was dedicated exclusively to building Sturmgeschütz, a vehicle whose manufacture continued right up until the final days of the war. Almost by accident, the Germans had created one of the first successful examples of a new category of war machine, the Panzerjäger or tank hunter. StuG units quickly embraced this role. By early 1944, assault gun crews claimed around 20,000 enemy tank kills, testament to their effectiveness on the battlefield. The Sturmgeschütz manual emphasized time and again that the gun should always be fired from a stationary position. Only then could the weapon achieve maximum accuracy. When commanders followed this instruction, the results were often devastating. Yet, in fast-moving battles, where every second mattered, the lack of a turret proved to be a serious drawback. To overcome this, Sturmgeschütz crews developed defensive tactics, drawing enemy tanks into well-prepared ambush zones, carefully constructed killing grounds where their firepower could be unleashed to deadly effect. These tactics certainly worked, and in early 1943, the StuG received yet another boost in firepower with the introduction of the longer 48 caliber gun, which delivered even greater muzzle velocity. It was this new gun that armed the definitive version of the Sturmgeschütz, the Model G, of which 7,720 were ultimately produced. Such vast numbers speak for themselves, reflecting not only how effective the StuG was in combat, but also how indispensable it had become to German armored forces. In total, about 11,500 StuGs of all marks were manufactured, far more than the 4,500 Panzer IIIs, 6,800 Panzer IVs, or 6,000 Panthers produced in the same period. While turreted tanks spearheaded wide-ranging advances, the StuGs served at the heart of the infantry battle. They became the steadfast companions of German grenadiers, their shield in defense and their fist in attack. By 1943, StuGs were an indispensable part of both the Panzer Division and the Ordinary Infantry Division, where troops came to rely on them as guarantors of stability in battle. The infantry quickly learned that as long as the StuG were in position, the situation remained firmly under control. On the Eastern Front, skilled Sturmgeschütz crews achieved extraordinary results, at times destroying dozens of Soviet tanks in a single engagement. Yet, in such actions, one of the greatest challenges for their commanders lay in the vehicle's cramped design, which imposed strict limits on both fuel and ammunition capacity, forcing frequent withdrawals from battle. As the war dragged on, frontline soldiers increasingly drew confidence from the presence of the assault gun. For this reason, the tactical manuals placed special emphasis on the need for Sturmgeschütz commanders to reassure their infantry counterparts that any temporary withdrawal of their guns was merely to rearm and refuel, not a sign of retreat. Sturmgeschütz tactical doctrine laid down a clear rule. Whenever possible, not all machines were to be withdrawn from the line at once. Instead, they were to leave in relays. Otherwise, there was a very real danger that infantry morale might collapse if they saw their trusted assault guns pulling back together. And while the Sturmgeschütz had undeniably earned its reputation as a formidable tank killer, its infantry support role was far from obsolete. The 75mm gun, with its flat trajectory, was ideal against enemy armor. But when it came to dislodging infantry concealed behind cover, a high-trajectory howitzer was still required. The tactical doctrine for employing the two assault gun types was straightforward but highly effective. Vehicles armed with the 75mm long-barreled guns were to engage enemy armor, while those fitted with howitzers focused their fire on the infantry advancing alongside the tanks. Working in tandem, this coordination blunted countless Russian attacks, which broke upon the steadfast bulwark formed by the Sturmgeschütz battalions. By 1943, the battlefield success of the Sturmgeschütz made its production facilities a high-priority target for Allied bombers. The Alkit factory, which was chiefly responsible for building StuG 3s, was subjected to devastating saturation raids that left its facilities badly damaged. During the period of recovery and reconstruction, production was redirected to Krupp's tank works. However, Krupp specialized in manufacturing Panzer IVs rather than Panzer IIIs, creating significant complications for Sturmgeschütz production. In 1943, around 1,500 Sturmgeschütz were manufactured by Krupp using the Panzer IV chassis, paired with the highly successful L-48 gun. These vehicles, designated Sturmgeschütz IVs, proved to be every bit as effective as their StuG 3 predecessors. By the war's end, StuG crews had destroyed more than 30,000 enemy tanks, an extraordinary achievement, averaging roughly 3 enemy vehicles knocked out for every StuG deployed. Their reputation became so formidable that Soviet orders explicitly warned tank commanders against engaging Sturmgeschütz head-on, instructing them instead to maneuver for shots against the weaker side or rear armor. In total, some 11,500 Sturmgeschütz were produced, making it the most numerous German armored fighting vehicle of the war. Not only did the Sturmgeschütz prove itself highly effective on the battlefield, but it was also significantly cheaper, faster, and easier to produce than fully turreted tanks built on the same chassis, a critical factor for Germany's increasingly strained war industry. As the conflict dragged on and German armies on every front faced the overwhelming tide of Soviet and Allied armor, production resources were steadily redirected toward the Sturmgeschütz. Its design and role made it particularly well suited to the demands of a defensive war, where its strengths could be maximized to deadly effect. From its beginnings as a simple infantry-support gun, the Sturmgeschütz had transformed into the Wehrmacht's most important tank killer. The addition of the long-barreled 75mm gun turned the StuG from a bunker buster into a true predator of the battlefield, one that could knock out enemy armor at range. By the war's later stages, it was no longer just an auxiliary weapon, but the backbone of Germany's armored defense, a weapon that combined effectiveness, efficiency, and adaptability in a way few other vehicles of the war could match. In the end, the Sturmgeschütz was never meant to be Germany's premier tank killer. Yet, through battlefield necessity and clever adaptation, it became exactly that. What started as a low-profile support gun grew into the most feared and effective armored workhorse of the Wehrmacht. Its crews destroyed tens of thousands of enemy tanks, held the line when other vehicles faltered, and earned a reputation that even the mighty T-34 and Sherman crews learned to respect. The StuG story is not just one of engineering, but of evolution under fire, a reminder that sometimes the most unassuming designs can leave the deepest mark on history.